Good evening, class. We are actually going to talk about today on values, attitude, and job satisfaction. Okay, so let's start with values. Now, when we talk of values, so values actually, when we're saying it's talking about our own individual perception about what is right, what is good, what is desirable, right? And which is actually judgmental. What is right for me may not be right for others. And values helps us in laying the foundation of our attitudes, our motivation, and also it helps us to influence our perceptions. Now, one of the some of the examples of values when we say it's honesty, integrity, responsiveness, helping others. Now, when we talk of values, one important thing that comes, what are the attributes that comes into play? Now, there are two kinds of attributes when we talk of values. The first is content attribute, where we are talking of the mode of conduct, the way it's being conducted. That's the most important thing. The second is about intensity attribute, which talks about how important it's the degree of importance. According to Rokich Value Survey, there are two sets of values. First comes up is terminal values, which talks of our end goals, what we want to achieve. And the second type is instrumental values, which talks of the means or the ways of achieving our terminal goals. Now, for example, what happens if you as a student, if your terminal goal is to achieve good marks in exams, so the instrumental value will be what measures will you be taking to ensure that you achieve good marks in your final exams. Okay, so if you see this, these are the examples of terminal values and instrumental values. You have the full list in front of you. Now, individuals' values, it differs, but it actually also reflects the societal values of the era in which we were born and we had grown up. How do we link an individual's personality and values in the workplace? To address this issue, we have a theory, famous theory, which is the person job fit theory, which says that the degree of satisfaction will be high and the turnover rate will be low when there is a compatibility between our personality and occupation. Satisfaction is related to a personality, and turnover talks of it's related to occupation. So, for instance, a realist person who's very realistic and is in a realistic job will be in a more congruent situation or a better situation than in case of a person, a realistic person who is working in an investigative job. Same thing, another example could be a realistic person working in a social job. It's a mismatch. It's not a very healthy situation. When we talk about the person job with theory, there are certain factors that has to be kept in mind. Once that there is some intrinsic differences in personality amongst individuals. There are different types of jobs, and a person whose job is compatible with their personality will be more satisfied and would likely to stay in the organization as compared to a person whose job does not match their personality. So when we talk of personality job with theory, it actually identifies 6 types of personalities. Let's look into that. Now, what are these 6 types? The first type talks of realistic, where we're talking of physical activities and the occupation where we're talking of mechanics, we're talking of operators, there are a lot of strength is required. Second type is investigative, where it is talking about thinking, organizing, and understanding. Good example up here is when we talk of an economist, we talk of a mathematician, we talk of news reporter. Social talks of if you're helping others, and it could be a social worker, teachers, conventional person who is very much rule bounded. So it could be an accountant, it could be a bank manager. Enterprising, where we are talking of having some verbal activities in which there are opportunities to influence others and attain power. So we are talking of lawyers, we're talking of small business managers, we're talking of public relations specialists. And the last talks of artistic. Artistic is where it talks of creative expression. So we have painters, musicians, writers, for example. Okay. So when we talk of the person organization fit, it's talking of the compatibility between human beings or employees and the organization. And the compatibility occurs when there are three conditions. You need to fulfill any of the three can happen. So when at, at least one entity provides what the other needs. An entity here, which means the employees and the organization. One is providing what the other requires. Second could be that they share similar fundamental characteristics. And the third could be a combination of both A and B. Now, when we use this five big terminology, what do we see is that like be a person who is an extrovert would fit in a culture organization which has an aggressive and team oriented culture, for example, or people who are very agreeable, they would be better in an organization which has a supportive climate, and so on and so forth. The other factor is with this using this theory, it also talks about if there is a compatibility between the employees and the organization, leads to high job satisfaction, more commitment, and less resignation from the organization or low turnover, as we say. So, my next question that comes up is why is it important to know an individual's values? Why is this? Because values, they often explain our attitudes, behaviors, and perception. Now, what happens? Managers would like to also appreciate, evaluate positively employees, and would like to reward them who fit in that organization, the organizational culture. And on the other hand, employees are more satisfied if they feel that they fit in that organization. Now, when an interview happens, what happens? Your bosses would not only just look into your ability, but they would also look into your value system and to see whether that matches or as we say compatible with the organization's values. So next comes up is attitudes. Now attitudes when we say these are evaluative statements. It could be favorable, it could be unfavorable, and it's talking about objects, people, or events. So attitudes actually they reflect what we feel about something. What are the main components of attitude? There are three components when we say one is cognitive component, the second is affective component, and the third is behavioral component. When we say cognitive component, we are actually talking about we are actually describing certain things, or that's our belief, what we say. So it's without any emotions. So, for example, if we say, if I am paid less, so I believe this, so I say my pay is low. There's no emotions, nothing involved there. Just a statement of a situation. We are describing it. When we talk of affective component, we are talking about a situation and where we our emotions or feelings are involved. So it could be because my payment is less, so I'm angry. So I say I'm angry over how little I'm being paid. The third component is behavioral component, where it talks about an intention to behave in a certain way. What is the intention of behaving? Why are we behaving in that way towards something or someone? Because we are paid less. So what happens? We say, I'm going to look for another job that pays better. So this cognitive, affective, and behavioral component is also called ABC model of attitudes. A stands for affective, B stands for behavioral, C stands for cognitive. Okay. Now, when we talk of attitudes, what are the moderator, which is the moderating variables which is there? First is the importance of the attitude. Second comes up its correspondence to the behavioral pattern. Third is the level of accessibility. Fourth talks of social pressures. And the fifth one is our direct experience. So, what are the major job attitudes that we have? First one is job satisfaction, where we are talking satisfaction is something very positive. So, a positive feeling about our job. So, someone who has a positive feeling about a job will actually be highly satisfied. If you're satisfied, highly satisfied with your job, you will have positive feelings. And if you're, negative, if you're not satisfied with your job, you tend to have a negative feeling. Next comes up is job involvement. Job involvement is where it's to extent to which individuals identify themselves with the job. And so when you have a high job involvement, it also leads to reduction in absences. So you're more punctual to jobs and you're more present. And the level of resignation decreases. The third one is organizational commitment, where we are talking of the degree to which an employee identifies themselves with an organization as well as its goals. And if they are highly committed, they would prefer to stay in that organization. That would lead to lower absenteeism and, of course, low turnover or low level of less people leaving the job. The next one is employee engagement, where we talk of an individual's involvement with the work, level of satisfaction, and enthusiasm for the work that he or she does. Okay, next comes up is perceived organizational support or POS, which is talking about the degree to which employees believe that the organization values their contribution and cares about their well-being. Say, for instance, if you're working in an organization and for some day on one particular one fine day you find that someone in your family is not well. It could be your parents not well, and then you actually tell your employer that you're not able to come on that day and you want to take leave, and your employer actually is concerned about your condition and excuses you and is sympathetic. So that's where you feel that okay, the organization does care about you, and you would prefer to stay in an organization, such an organization. So what happens is people would prefer or consider that their organization is supportive when they have a fair rewards, when employees have a say in the decisions, and also when the supervisors are supportive. Okay. So these are some of the questions for you to think about. Next comes up is how do we measure job satisfaction? The first way is called single global rating, which is talking about asking individuals to answer one question. For example, if we say, all things considered, how satisfied are you with your job? One question. The second type is summation of job facets, where we we identify some basic key elements in a job and asks the employee's feelings about each. So some of these factors could be the nature of job, talks about supervision, a pay scale, opportunities, and also a relation with co-workers. Now, if you see this graph, it says what are the main causes of job satisfaction. So what do we actually see? That the highest the factor which causes the maximum level of dissatisfaction is stress, on job stress, followed by a pay level. Then comes promotion, the work, quality of work, security, job security, our supervisors, and the lowest is co-workers. Let's talk of the impact of satisfied and dissatisfied employees on the workplace. To address this issue, we have the theoretical model, which is called exit, voice, loyalty, neglect framework, which helps us in understanding what can be the consequences when people are dissatisfied at the job place. So there are two dimensions to look into this model. One talks of constructive or destructive actions. The other talks of active or passive actions. So let's start with the exit. When we talk of exit, what sort of response do we have? We have a very direct behavior towards exit means to leave, about leaving organization. So it could be leaving organization means looking for a new position. I mean, you are resigning because you want to go for a new position. You're not happy with your existing situation, existing position. The second comes up is voice, where which in this type the response that is it's very active and constructive. You're trying to improve the existing situations. You start giving suggestions. You discuss problems with your supervisors, and you undertake also some social norms or activities. Okay. Next comes up is where we talk of loyalty. Now, when we talk of loyalty, what are we actually talking about? We are talking the response that comes up in this case. It's a passive response, but which is optimistic. Where you wait for conditions to improve, and that includes speaking up on behalf of the organization when there is an external criticism. You're loyal to your organization and you trust that your organization and your management, and you feel that your organization and management will always do the right thing. The last that comes up is neglect. Now, when we talk of neglect, the response that we come across it's quite passive, and where we actually wait for conditions to worsen and it worsen. And when we neglect, what happens? We are absent in our jobs, we are late, we put in less effort, and the rate of error increases. So that is all that we have in today's class. uh, I'll see you in the next class.